Reading to the Bible in a year, November 30th. 1 Chronicles chapter 28, 2 Peter chapter 2, Micah 5, and Luke 14. And David assembled at Jerusalem all the commanders of Israel, and the commanders of the tribes, and all the commanders of the divisions that ministered to the king, and the commanders of thousands, and the commanders of hundreds, and the commanders over all the property and livestock belonging to the king and his sons, with the officials and the mighty men, even all the mighty men of valor. Then King David rose to his feet and said, "Listen to me, my brothers and my people. I had it within my heart to build a house of rest for the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, and for the footstool of the feet of our God. So I had made provisions or preparations to build it. But God said to me, 'You shall not build a house for my name, because you are a man of war and have shed blood.' Yet Yahweh, the God of Israel, chose me from all the house of my father to be king over Israel forever. For he has chosen Judah to be a ruler, and in the house of Judah, my father's house, and among the sons of my father, he took pleasure in me to make me king over all Israel. Now, all of my sons, for Yahweh has given me many sons, of all of my sons, for Yahweh has given me many sons, he has chosen my son Solomon to sit on the throne of the kingdom of Yahweh over Israel. And he said to me, 'Your son Solomon is the one who shall build my house and my courts.' For I have chosen him to be a son to me, and I will be a father to him. And I will establish his kingdom forever, if he will be strong to do my commandments and my judgments, as is done now. So now, in the sight of all Israel, the assembly of Yahweh, and in the hearing of our God, keep and seek after all the commandments of Yahweh your God, so that you may possess the good land, and cause your sons after you to inherit it forever. As for you, my son Solomon, know the God of your father, and serve him with a whole heart and a delighted soul. For Yahweh searches all hearts, and understands every intent of the thoughts. If you seek him, he will be found. But if you forsake him, he will reject you forever. See now, for Yahweh has chosen you to build a house for the sanctuary. Be strong and act." Then David gave to his son Solomon the pattern of the porch of the temple, its buildings, its storehouses, its upper rooms, its inner rooms, and the room for the mercy seat, and the pattern of all that he had in mind for the courts of the house of Yahweh, and for all the surrounding chambers, and for the treasuries of the house of God, and for the treasuries of the holy things, also for the divisions of the priests and of the Levites, for all the work of the service, and for the house of Yahweh, and for all the utensils of service in the house of Yahweh, for the golden utensils, the weight of gold for all its utensils for every kind of service, for the silver utensils, the weight of silver for all utensils for every kind of service, and the weight of gold for the golden lampstands and their golden lamps, with the weight of each lampstand in its lamps, and the weight of silver for the silver lampstands, with the weight of each lampstand and its lamps according to the service of each lampstand. And the gold by weight for the tables of showbread for each table, and for the silver tables, and for the flesh hooks, the bowls, and the jars of pure gold, and for the golden bowls, and with the weight for each bowl, and for the silver bowls with the weight for each bowl, and for the altar of incense refined gold by weight, and gold for the pattern of the chariot, even the cherubim that spread out their wings and covered the ark of the covenant of Yahweh. All this, said David, has been granted to me as insight in writing by the hand of Yahweh, all the details of this pattern. Then David said to his son Solomon, "Be strong and courageous, and act. Do not fear, nor be dismayed, for Yahweh God, my God, is with you. He will not fail you nor forsake you until all the work of the service of the house of Yahweh is completed. For the service of the house, verse 21, now behold, there are the divisions of the priests and the Levites for all the service of the house of God. And every willing man with wisdom will be with you in all the work for all the service. The officials also and all the people will be entirely at your command. That's all the notes to here. Move on to 2 Peter chapter 2. But false prophets also arose among the people, just as there will also be false teachers among you, who will secretly introduce destructive heresies, even denying the master who bought them, bringing swift destruction upon themselves. And many will follow their sensuality, and because of them, the way of the truth will be maligned. And in their greed, they will exploit you with false words. Their judgment from long ago is not idle, and their destruction is not asleep. For if God did not spare angels who sinned, but cast them into the pit and delivered them to chains of darkness, being kept for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but preserved Noah, a preacher of righteousness, with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon the world of the ungodly, and if he condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to destruction by reducing them to ashes, having made them an example to those who would live ungodly lives thereafter. And if he rescued righteous Lot, oppressed by the sensual conduct of unprincipled men, for by what he saw and heard, that righteous man, while living among them, felt his righteous soul tormented day after day by their lawless deeds, then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trial, and to keep the unrighteous under punishment for the day of judgment, and especially those who go after the flesh in its corrupt lust and despise authority. Daring, self-willed, they do not tremble when they blaspheme glorious ones, whereas angels, who are greater in strength and power, do not bring a reviling judgment against them before the Lord. But these, like unreasoning animals, born as creatures of instinct to be captured and killed, blaspheming where they have no knowledge, will, in the destruction of those creatures, also be destroyed, suffering unrighteousness as the wages of their unrighteousness, considering it a pleasure to revel in the daytime. They are like stains and blemishes, reveling in their deceptions as they feast with you, having eyes full of adultery and unceasing sin, enticing unstable souls, having a heart trained in greed. They are accursed children. Forsaking the right way, they have gone astray, having followed the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. But he received a rebuke for his own lawlessness. For a mute donkey, speaking out with the voice of a man, restrained the madness of the prophet. These are springs without water, and mists driven by a storm, for whom the black darkness has been kept. For speaking out arrogant words of vanity, they entice, by sensual lusts of the flesh, those who barely escape from the ones who conduct themselves in error, promising them freedom while they themselves are slaves of corruption. For by what a man is overcome, by this he is enslaved. If they are overcome, having both escaped the defilements of the world by the knowledge of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, having again been entangled in them, then the last state has become worse for them than the first. Making sure I don't lose notes here. There's a lot of great notes in this section. Back to verse 21. For it would be better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than, having known it, to turn away from the holy commandments handed on to them. The message of the true proverb has happened to them. A dog returns to its own vomit, and a sow, after washing, returns to wallowing in the mire. Now Micah chapter 5. Now muster yourselves in troops, daughter of troops. They have laid siege against us. With a rod they will strike the judge of Israel on the cheek. But as for you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, too little to be among the clans of Judah. From you, one will go forth from me to be a ruler in Israel. His goings forth are from everlasting, from the Ancient of Days. Therefore he will give them up until the time when she who is in childbirth has borne a child. Then the remainder of his brothers will return to the sons of Israel. And he will stand and will shepherd his flock in the strength of Yahweh, in the majesty of the name of Yahweh his God. And they will remain, because at that time he will be great to the ends of the earth. And this one will be, I apologize, I'm still recovering from, well, not even recovering. I'm still in the middle of my cold, but I can speak now, so we're rolling. Back to verse 5. In this one will be peace, when the Assyrian enters our land, when he treads on our citadels. Then we will raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 princes of men, and they will shepherd the land of Assyria with the sword, the land of Nimrod at its entrances. And he will deliver us from the Assyrian when he enters our land, when he treads within our borders. Then the remnant of Jacob will be among many peoples, like dew from Yahweh, like showers on vegetation, which do not hope for man or wait for the sons of men. Then the remnant of Jacob will be among the nations, among many peoples, like a lion among the beasts of the forest, like a young lion among flocks of sheep, which, if it passes through, tramples down and tears, and there is none to deliver. Your hand will be raised up against your adversaries, and all your enemies will be cut off. And it will be in that day, declares Yahweh, that I will cut off your horses from among you, and destroy your chariots. And I will cut off the cities of your land, and pull down all your fortifications. And I will cut off your sorceries from your hand, and and you will have soothsaying no more. And I will cut off your graven images and your sacred pillars from among you, so that you will no longer worship the work of your hands. And I will uproot your Asherim from among you, and eradicate your cities. And I will execute vengeance in anger and wrath on the nations which have not listened. Including today in Luke chapter 14. And it happened that when, when Jesus went into the house of one of the leaders of the Pharisees on the Sabbath to eat bread, they were watching him closely. And behold, in front of him was a man suffering from dropsy. And Jesus answered and spoke to the scholars of the law and the Pharisees, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or no? But they were silent. And he took hold of him and healed him and sent him away. And he said to them, Which one of you will have a son or an ox fall into a well, will not immediately pull him out on a Sabbath day? But they could make no reply to this. And he was telling a parable to the invited guests when he noticed how they were picking up places of honor at the table, saying to them, When you are invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not recline at the place of honor, lest someone more highly regarded than you be invited by him. And he who invited you both, will come and say to you, Give your place to this man. Then in shame you will proceed to occupy the last place. But when you were invited, go and recline at the last place, so that when the one who has invited you comes, you may say, friend, move up higher. Then you will have honor in the sight of all who recline at the table with you. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. And he also went on to say to the one who had invited him, When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, lest they also invite you in return, and that will be your repayment. But when you give a reception, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, since they do not have the means to repay you, for it will be repaid to you at the resurrection of the righteous. But one of those who were reclining at table with him heard this. He said to him, "Blessed is everyone who will eat bread in the kingdom of God." And Jesus replied to him, "A man was having a big dinner, and he invited many. And at the dinner hour he sent his slave to say to those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is ready now.' But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said to him, 'I have bought a piece of land, and I need to go out and look at it. I ask you, consider me excused.' And another said, 'I have bought 5 yoke of oxen. I am going to try them out. I ask you, consider me excused.'" My favorite one. And another one said, "I have married a wife, and for that reason I cannot come." And when the slave came back, he reported these things to his master. Then the head of the household became angry and said to his slave, "Go out at once into the streets and lanes of the city and bring in here the poor, crippled, blind, and lame." The slave said, "Master, what you have commanded has been done, and there is still room." And the master said to the slave, "Go out into the highways and along the fences and compel them to come in, so that my house may be filled. For I tell you, none of those men who are invited shall taste of my dinner." Now many crowds were going along with him. And he turned and said to them, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother, and wife and children, and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." We talked about this before. This is a horrific, terrifying thing for people to hear, because everybody knows what death on a cross looks like. That's a horrific thing to think through. It's like, basically telling you that you need to pick up the hangman's noose that's going to be used to hang you with. Or you need to carry the rifle that some guard eventually is going to use to kill you with. That's the point being made. For which one of you, when he wants to build a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? Lest, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who observe it will begin to ridicule him, saying, "This man began to build and was not able to finish." Or what king, when he sets out to meet another king in battle, will not first down and consider whether he is strong enough with 10,000 men to encounter the one coming against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So then, none of you can be my disciple who does not give up all his own possessions. Therefore, salt is good. But even if salt has become tasteless, with what will it be seasoned? It is useless either for the soil or for the manure pile. It's thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Again, tons of great information in these notes. Strongly recommend you read them. That is all for today. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Hold the word of the Lord.